Will that be determined, and how will it be proven?
If you look there, the additional effort required during a further attempt will be communicated, the bullet under number 3, the first one. Yeah.
So my question is, how is that going to happen? I mean, is there going to be a document prepared that, you know, I mean, have you had this conversation, or are you just going to talk and say, hey, you're going to study harder, and that kid's going to say yes, and 2 days later they come back and say, I studied harder, I'm ready to do my retest. So my question is, how are we going to determine, conversation, student and teacher, what they need to do to try to help them improve, and how is the student going to report back that they truly did do that? You know, if
Define bullet number 3, you're saying.
Right, just a suggestion, but if we make the communication to the parent and the age-appropriate child, and we get a parent's signature stating that they've done what was requested, that would be your proof.
That's what Leander's saying.
Right, no, I know, I'm offering up
I'm signing that they
that.
did X, what's X?
Well, that's where the whole question of, did you ask it?
Well, I
The
think we talked
communication
about the
comes in.
additional effort. I mean, who's responsible for that effort? Is the teacher supposed to reteach to the student, or are the parents responsible for reteaching something that they've, like in Spanish? I can't speak Spanish. So if my child failed her Spanish test and she had to do additional effort, I couldn't help her. I mean, so whose responsibility is it to help with that effort?
And that may be up to the individual teacher to set that criteria, I guess.
Yeah, that was the perspective of the teachers who actually do this. And both the parent advisory committee and the teachers said the parents should be kept out of this.
at what point?
Yeah,
That it's not it's not at the parent request. The student has to agree to do this.
I thought the parents were involved too. I thought that's what we had decided.
No,
I can
that's
see it
what
not being
was said.
initiated from the parent. You know,
Right.
I think the student needs to take ownership
Ownership.
and step forward and ask for it.
Correct.
And abide by whatever, but I still think the parent should be informed.
I mean, you're dealing with a minor, so.
Well, we were talking about the retaker. You know, kids, we didn't want to be known as a retaker. So kids didn't want to do the retake because then they were like, oh, he's a retaker. So it was a stigma. So that, you know, we talked about that. We talked about a lot of things. I mean, I really wish we had our notes from there because it was really good. It was a good discussion. The Parent Advisory Committee was a really good discussion about that. And we all had kids that went through it. So, I mean, no offense to you guys that don't, but like, so we kind of had like, we could kind of wrap our arms around it better and talk about what worked and what didn't. Does that make sense? I mean, Mark, you know, did you guys ever
No, I think
retake?
I need to put this in context. You know, these are not guidelines that that are changing anything that we're doing. They're just making it uniform. So this is not anything to do with what was going on with the pilots. What the pilots did was say, hey, we have an issue here, not just in these places here, but whenever a further attempt is allowed, we need to have these guidelines.
Yeah,
So that was
retakes
the
have been
purpose
going
here.
on
So this
as long
is,
as I know. I mean, but certain teachers.
No problem, but we're really making it verbal now with this whole new change.
Right.
So as long as we're making it verbal, and as long as we believe that family is one of our core values, let's incorporate them. I mean, either that or let's look at our core values and revamp everything.
I could see about having kids take ownership and not having the initiative come from the parents.
I can understand that. What I'm saying is that once the student goes home and says, I studied, would it
Or
really
whatever
hurt
it
them?
is, or
I did whatever, I
did
researched,
extra,
I researched.
right.
Would it really hurt them to get a parent's signature and bring it back the next day?
That's what we
We
did
have to
before.
sign, we have to sign a folder now.
That's
And I think
enforcing
that-
the home school partnership.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think
we have
it
to
did
sign
happen
a,
at points because I distinctly remember them having to take that test, make the corrections, and find the correct answers, and I signed it. So, you know,
Right. And all Leandra's asking is how does the teacher know, without giving the second attempt and looking at the grade, how does
do they know
Leandra
they're
know?
ready?
Leandra's asking how do the teachers know
That
that
they're
the
ready.
child put in that effort that was communicated under item whatever item here, and And all the suggestion on the table is that perhaps get a parent signature.
So are you looking for the parent approval for the further attempt?
No, the parent, the
Or are you
parent
looking-
acknowledgement that the child did something. To
So-
allow the child to go in and take the second attempt.
Because it's extra time involved on the teacher to administer the retake. So we don't want to waste the teacher's time. If the student didn't do what they're supposed to do, they didn't withhold their end.
And we don't want to waste the classroom time either, because the retakes are taking place during class currently, or they were in the pilot. So at that point, the remaining students were told, go read X, whatever X might be, while these students are taking a test. So you're kind of like, you're considering wasting the teacher's time. That's wasting, let's say, if half the class is retaking and the other class didn't have to,
Right, there were
it's
some
wasting
might have been
that
at-
child's
at
time
lunch break or
too.
something.
So it's like, all we're saying is that, okay, even if these have been going on forever, we're really verbalizing and communicating this quote-unquote new curriculum. Let's really do it.
Okay, so how do you think the chain of events, again, confused too. How do you want the chain of events to go? What are you looking for? How do you want the chain of events to go so that we can communicate it?
I would love for the communication on what's required to go home with the child and the parent acknowledge that.
In order to be, what that child needs to do to prepare for the retake.
No, it'd be something like this. Okay, I'm going to have you come in. I'm going to use something real simple, a mile run. Okay, you failed the mile run. You have to do it again. So in order for me to allow you to do that again, I'm going to write this down. You have to run around the block 20 times. So I send that home. This is just a suggestion, right? The parent acknowledge, okay, the teacher's saying that if my child has to do this retake, this mile run retake, they have to run around the block 20 times. Perhaps I sign it there, send it back to the school, and that's acknowledgement that my child and I, understand what effort has to go in order to take the retake. Once they run around the block 20 times, the parent can sign off on that, send it, and now the child's capable of doing the mile run. And I know I'm using a very idiotic, simple example, but I'm just saying if
You think
we're
they
really
just need
talking
the
about,
two signatures?
I'm just saying that, okay. Well, what if it's like, you
Yeah.
have to read the encyclopedia,
I know,
and then
but
the
you're
kid
saying
comes up to the parent and
Yes,
says, "Hey, I
acknowledge
did
it, And
that."
then sign it again saying, yes, they're ready. I
Well,
would
we're
think
looking
just the
for
one time.
we're looking for that communication to the home.
Right,
and
and
we're
I'm-
saying we're not going to do that. We're just going to give it to the child. So how can you expect the parent to sign off on it if only the child got the communication?
No, I'm just saying, I would think just the one signature saying that my child has done
that.
whatever
And
was
that's fine.
required and is
And
ready to take it.
That's fine too. That's fine
But
too.
now here, the third bullet, directions on how teachers and or students can initiate a request for further attempt. I think we need to be clear, who's initiating the request for the attempt? Well, I guess I don't know, why would the teacher initiate a request for a further attempt? Wouldn't the onus be on the child to do it? I don't know.
Yeah, the teacher may be suggesting to the student that a further attempt would be a good idea.
Okay, but the child needs to take ownership and
Correct.
then we need to be
And say,
specific
yes,
as
I want to.
to what needs to be done.
That's why we stated here that it needed to be, the directions needed to be clear.
Right, but there are opportunities available for each, they're not clear to me. They're going to be clear. So it's going to be clear what additional effort is expected, what the expectations are, right?
Yeah, it says age-appropriate communication to students about further attempts will include the following. Additional effort required to earn a further attempt. So they will describe the effort that the student needs for a further attempt.
So will there be a document? Will there be
Just close the lid and it's
something scripted that defines
Right.
this additional effort? How are we going to hold the student accountable that they fulfilled the additional effort part and have earned the opportunity for a retake?
I think you need to trust the teachers that, they will,
How would the teacher know what the student's done on their own time, though?
well, they give direct, we
They'll
talked
find
about
out,
whether
they'll know
the teachers do this
Exactly.
commonly.
I mean,
But they would have known
on
that
one
on
hand,
the
you
first
want
test
the
too.
child to take ownership, but you don't want to waste their time either. So, I mean, are we just going on blind faith and saying, this is what I want you to do? in order to retake, and the kid comes back and says, okay, I did it, and okay, so here you go?
Yeah,
or-
when we talked about this with the teachers, for example, there'd be a